Welcome back to another episode of the Dojo Media Show. My name's Raphael and this is Logan. And today's guest is my cousin Shelley Segal. And she's the first guest that we've got on that's a family member of either ours, which is pretty cool.
May not be the last, but we'll see.
Yeah, we'll see how we go.
Yeah. Do you have any family members you want to get on?
No, I don't think so.
Not that you know.
Not really fitting for our podcast anyway. Yeah. Sorry, guys. Love you all. But
Take that, family.
Yeah, she lives in LA, which I find really cool. And
none of my family lives there, so
none of them live there.
No.
Yeah, but a funny thing is that I tell people is I've got two cousins that live in America, and one of them went over there to become a rabbi and become really religious, and the other one went over there to sing about atheism. Well, it's not only what she sings about, but that's a big part of it. So
yeah. So yeah, thanks for having me on the show, guys. And Raph, I hope you can ask the more biting questions, right? The closer you are to someone, the more you know.
I was going to say, that just went right on in.
Yeah. But yeah, I grew up in Melbourne, Australia, even though I'm based in LA now. And my dad had a wedding band, a Jewish wedding band. So we played at bar mitzvahs and weddings and anniversaries, and we played at aged care facilities and like a lot of traditional Jewish music, but also it was a great foundation for me as a vocalist and just a musician, was playing like, you know, so many different styles throughout the night, playing 60s, 70s, 80s, 90s pop music, and then everyone's dancing in the dance sets, and then when it's quiet over, you know, the meals, we play like jazz or folk music. So it was a really great foundation for me as an artist. I started singing with my dad's band when I was about 11 years old. He would get me up, force me up on stage just to do like a song or two. And then by the time I was 15, I was like doing the whole night. And it's a great foundation as a singer. And that was actually when when the Adam Sandler movie came out, The Wedding Singer. That was when I realized like, oh, my dad's really cool. Like I didn't realize it was cool until then. But and I started writing songs about the same time that I started performing. At about 11 years old. And
what are you writing about at 11 years old?
At 11 years old.
Must be pretty deep.
And heartbreak.
All the crushes, you know. Actually, there was one song about war. I was a deep kid.
I remember when I was a kid, there was the Christchurch. I'm from New Zealand, and there was the Christchurch earthquake when I was, man, I would have been like maybe around like 12 or 13, and I remember I wrote heartfelt rap.
It's
I get it. Sometimes you just got to let it out, right?
Right, absolutely.
About what's going on in the world.
That's it. And that's the practice of it. Really, that's what it's been for me. Like kind of therapy. And so I grew up really immersed in the Jewish community. I think similarly to you, Raph. And
probably not as much.
I went to a Jewish school. I was singing Jewish music on the weekend.
What's, in like most layman terms, what's Jewish music?
Well, the style that my father's band plays was klezmer music, which is like a traditional folk style. It's similar to like Eastern European styles. It's got that 2/4. I think the one that everyone knows, like from the movies, is Hava Nagila Hava.
Do you know that?
I've heard it,
Yeah. It's like really pumping, and it's amazing party music, and everyone's dancing and swaying, and you put the bride and groom and family members up on chairs and throw them up in the air. So it was always a blast. I liked hanging out with my family on the weekend, like doing, you know, getting to dress up and do the functions. It was really fun. So I was really immersed in this community. I went to synagogue every week with my folks, and it was a really big part of my life. And then when I got to kind of high school, like 16, 17, I started questioning things for the first time, and just questioning the narrative that I've been told about how the world had come to be and what was true, and
why is that? So were you at a Jewish school still?
I was at a Jewish school.
Okay, so amongst the surroundings, you're still questioning it.
The thing is, I'm very trusting, and I really took everybody's like what they had to say. I took it to heart, and I believed in it, and I was very passionate about it. I wanted to be more observant. But when I took biology class, and I took it as an elective. And because I love animals, like I love dolphins, it's like that little dolphin necklace wearing girl with the like opal, the mother of pearl dolphins. Like I love that, and I just wanted to learn more about animals. And when I learned about evolution, it was like, oh, wow, this is...
Science.
Right.
Ruining dreams
Don't let your
forever.
kids learn science. They'll end up moving to America to apparently sing about atheism. No. No, so it was at odds with the narrative.
So how does
that
this
I had
work?
been
They're
told.
teaching a subject that completely contradicts Judaism.
I think in Australia you have to teach that.
Well,
don't
you don't have to teach it, as far as I understand, because the rest of my peers at school didn't have to learn that. My brother didn't learn it. It was only because I took biology as an elective. The school, it's a competitive school. They want to do well, so they had to teach us.
Was that
was
teacher
accurate
Jewish and religious?
For our two, no, she wasn't, Mrs. Fong. Well, I can't make assumptions, but
sure.
I'll make one. Yeah, I mean, she was amazing.
Probably
She
not.
was my favorite teacher, and it was like because I'd taken that subject, I learned it, but everybody else that I went to school with that didn't take that didn't learn that. So I learned about it. It was like incredibly inspiring. I think previously I felt kind of disconnected a little bit, even not consciously, like from the earth. You know, it's like the story is God made you out of the dust. You know, it's kind of like this kind of supernatural sci-fi style thing where you've just come out of nothing, as opposed to learning that I'm actually related to every single life form on the planet. We're all
Even
related.
the dolphins in a little way.
Even the dolphin. I was part dolphin. It's very exciting. No, it was mind blowing to me, and I was so inspired by the idea. And I'd go home to talk to my family about it, and kind of be met with skepticism and a little bit of ridicule, even. Like just wasn't something that they understood or had been taught. And so that was like a seed of questioning. There were different areas along the way, like seeing religion get in the way of relationships. Like I had a partner at the time that wasn't Jewish, and that was such a big deal for my family. And they're like, my dad's like, you have to, you can't be with him. And I'm like, this isn't supposed to be stopping love. The God that I believe in, the one I'm talking to and praying to, he's like, he's on my side. He's like, go for it. Have fun, Shelley. But yeah, so little things like that. And
so how long was this journey overall? If you're between high school and loving someone, was this a long journey, a few years, or like was this all around the same time?
Yeah, it was all around the same time,
Okay.
like 16, 17. Yeah. And then, just I was lucky to go traveling, and you see a lot of different places, you meet a lot of different people, and you start to see that everybody has their own worldview, and it kind of gives you a context for your own. So I started to see that all of the beliefs that I had were worldview, and they were just as deserving of criticism and critique and inquiry as much as everybody else's. So that really shaped me, and just seeing a lot of the hardship that people have to go through, it's kind of it's an indictment to me to say, all the things that are wrong, it's all the suffering in the world. If God can't get rid of suffering, then what power is he? And if he sees suffering and doesn't want to get rid of it, then that's an indictment too. So yeah, it was a long journey, but eventually I decided that I don't subscribe to that belief that I was raised with. I left that belief. I left my tradition in a lot of ways. There were other things I took issue with, like I went to an Orthodox synagogue, and in an Orthodox synagogue they practice gender segregation. So the women will sit upstairs, and if you can't make it upstairs for some reason, you can sit up the back with a curtain in front of you. And my brother would say, it's just a symbol. And I'd say, it's also a literal curtain. It's very, I found it very degrading. And as a woman in Judaism, in the synagogue that we went to, I'm not allowed to participate in leading the congregation. My father and my brother would be called up for the great honor of singing and leading the congregation in song. And even though I was so passionate about it and wanted to participate, I wasn't allowed to because of my gender. And I took issue with that, and I still do. And so, being a songwriter and writing about whatever is in the forefront of my mind, this transition for me was it like shook my foundation of everything I believe in. I had to like reassess my whole worldview, and so I started writing about it, and I was having experiences and discussions with people, and I wrote like a whole album about becoming an atheist. and finding a new way of seeing the world and seeing the beauty in this new way of looking at
there weren't too many albums out there like that.
No. So, and I'm very literal, and I like to kind of bring the point home. So I called
that's what I was going to ask. How on the nose is it?
It's pretty on the nose. Yeah, I think so. Like there's one song called Eve that talks about, it goes through the different rules that the Abrahamic traditions and their texts use to like define women and define women's roles. You know, we're not allowed to speak in the church. We're not allowed to be teachers of men. We have to be modest. We have to cover up our bodies. You know, those kinds of things. And so, you know, it depends how you like your music. I grew up listening to folk artists like Ani DeFranco and Ben Harper, like indie roots, and like, you know, I like that stuff that really hits you and is direct. And like, I like music that's ethereal and kind of gives you just a mood and a vibe. But the music that always spoke to me the most were those folk artists, where it was just really lyric driven, and it changed the way that I thought about the world. And I want to be part of that chain, you know, of creation and engaging, and that helps people question the way that they see things, because that's the most important thing to me. I don't care what you choose at the end, but, you know, have good reasons for what you believe. Don't just accept, you know, what you've been told, because we inherit all these ideas. But yeah, so my first album was called An Atheist Album. And I like the
point.
I like the alliteration, you know, AAA.
Is it like a lot of, is it just about your journey to it, or is there a little bit of like criticism in there as well?
There's definitely some wider criticism. There's another song, Afterlife, that talked about, you know, some of the consequences of people focusing on the next life instead of this one, you know.
Yeah, I have a big issue with that.
I heard people in my community talk about not needing to worry about the environment because the world will end when God says it ends. You know, we don't have any say or control over that. And, that, you know, there's just so many... there's a lot of harm in those beliefs. So, there's definitely wider issues. And then I talk about my experience too.
Well, I suppose the reason I ask that is because I want to know, like, what compels you, I suppose, to come at it from a critical angle. Personally, because maybe just because I'm not a songwriter, so I don't verbalize my thoughts in that kind of way. That's true. Very true. Yeah. But if I had that kind of realization, I think I would be more prone to like move on and leave that in the past, as opposed to, are you trying to educate people like that are currently in that position? Are you just trying to, is it just a verbal diary for you? What compels you to like go at it from that angle?
That's a great question. And I think things have built on what I want to achieve with that record and what I have achieved with that record that I released in 2012. So it's been a long time. But at the time, it was just my self-expression, you know. I wrote another song after a preacher came up to me in the street and told me that I was going to hell. I was going to burn forever. And, you know, I was frustrated, and the frustration of like, who...
What do you mean? Were you busking or something?
No, I was just walking. I was just walking.
They just heard your music.
In my neighborhood.
Did they
didn't know anything about my music.
Yeah, so it was just a random person.
Yeah, it was just a random person.
Like I've had random people come up to me.
Right. And
positive things like that. Not I'm going to hell, though.
And I just feel like...
They're usually trying to...
it's not very inviting.
They're trying to recruit you normally. Anyway, so
I've heard not really realizing
if you're not born again, you're going straight to hell. I've heard that sort of thing.
Oh wow, yeah. It just made me, you know, feel that pushback of like, you can't tell me how to live my life. Yeah. And how do you know what you say you know?
Yeah.
You know?
But didn't you find a lot of people related to it along the way?
And that's the thing. I
find it interesting you've sang for religious audiences too.
For sure. And so so I wrote it initially as an expression of my own beliefs and just to vent, because that's what I love to
interrupt
do.
one last time. It just reminds me a fair bit of...
Keep interrupting.
No, you're on a roll, so I don't want to too much, but it just reminds me of what Roman was talking about, how it was the same thing, actually. It was a religious journey for him.
He was the person we had on.
A freestyle rapper that we had on a few weeks ago, and same thing. He was he went through his own religious journey, was like raised religious, and then I don't know exactly what happened, but basically same thing. He started questioning himself, and then he found that how he learned to be this new version of himself was through his songs. He would like ask himself questions and then like answer it through, because I suppose freestyle's so off the top of your head. If you ask yourself a question, you're just going to spill whatever you're thinking. It reminds me a lot of that. You're kind of doing the same thing, just through a different genre.
Totally. I mean, that's, to me, that's what exactly what you're saying. It's discovering yourself. You're processing your emotions. You're processing who you are and what you go through. And so it just made sense that because that was such a big thing, that's how I would process it. And it was a loss for me too. You know, a lot of people say like, oh, you just want to be against God. You just want to be rebellious.
Did you lose
just
a lot of
like
friends?
Being controversial. I hate conflict. Like, I like making people feel good. I'm a performer. I like making people feel comfortable and enjoy themselves. And I don't like conflict. And it wasn't something that I wanted. It was painful for me to lose that belief, that connection to community, all of those things that I grew up with. But and that's why I love the music that makes me question things.
So were the hardest people to share it with the people you grew up with?
No, I think
that were really religious and still fully believing everything.
I didn't necessarily share it with everyone.
Yeah.
There were a few people that took issue with, you know, what I ended up doing was, so after that album was released, it got like quite a bit of traction in the US because I think it's, like you said, it's something that a lot of people go through. It's a journey that is very common, and
especially, I suppose, in quite a heavily religious country.
More
so than here.
Especially, exactly. It's like it resonates here, and here is such a secular country. But what was really cool was getting to do press about it and getting to talk about the album with music media and get to kind of have that discussion, which probably is not the most common discussion that you get to have in those situations. And that was really interesting. I really enjoyed bringing up that discussion, and like I kind of got involved in a little bit of like secular activism here in the US, here in Australia, in Melbourne, with a group called Progressive Atheists. And there were a few issues that we got behind, and I was able to talk about them in the media, and that was really cool. So I think that then speaks to your previous question of, you know, at first it was just about my expression, but then it became like an opportunity to educate and create discussion. Definitely create a discussion within my family. My father is the president of the synagogue that we went to.
Wow.
Yeah. So how did he react to you telling him about this?
He's amazing. You know, I like to say that my parents love me more than they love God. Shelley won. No, and because so many people that I've met throughout this journey with my album have talked to me about, you know, being ostracized from their community, kicked out of their family home, just such negative consequences. Whereas my family, like, they definitely disagreed with me. They took it really personally sometimes, you know. But we'd been building up to this for a long time because they'd been there with me while I was questioning. I didn't hide it from them. I would like pull open the Bible and run around the house to my family reading things to them, and they're like, Dad's like, you're just cherry picking. I'm like, I open any page. And there's one thing that says, if your child tries to take you away from God, this is the Old Testament, I can't remember the passage, but then you have to kill them. But they can't
Didn't end up killing you?
No, they can't just be put to death. Like, you have to kill your child. It's your responsibility if they're trying to pull people away from God. So I found this passage, and I was going around the house going, Danny, this is your God. You must kill your daughter. And like, they're good sports. It was, I'm joking about it, but it actually was probably the hardest time for us as a family.
But Judaism is interesting in the way that it's culture and a religion as well.
Yes.
There's different sides to it, so I feel like you were still in the cultural side and you didn't want to like stop that. It was just that more religious.
It was harder for me to feel connected to the cultural side because of
is there a divide? Like, is there a split, or it is like
there are definitely people who are really into the culture that don't go to synagogue or anything like that.
I know I've met, and you know, especially through this journey, communicated with humanist Jewish communities. So they don't believe in God, but they love the culture and they like some of the practices, and they incorporate them. And definitely. So my dad actually helped me to make my Atheist album. It's pretty amazing. I had to go through all the words with him, you know. Like, arguing. And
Did he make you cut out any music, any song?
He didn't make me, but he had one good point that I thought was reasonable. So I did change a word, and then it actually became more incisive. So I was happy with that. I changed one word for him. And then I started touring that album around the US and also around the UK. And
where was it the most popular, like specifically? Where are the most atheist places in America?
All over the US, and for different reasons. And
I think there's like little pockets and communities everywhere, right?
Yeah, I went to play for an organization in Baton Rouge in Louisiana, and it was like 20 people in the back of a restaurant, and they can't really, they have to be really hush about what they do. Yeah. Like there's communities in America where, small towns in the Bible Belt where at a job interview, they'll be asked, what church do you go to? And if they say, I don't, they will not get their job.
Were you scared to go to any of these places?
No, I wasn't scared. But,
some people take it very seriously.
It was really eye-opening to meet people who are living in, what is supposed to be a secular democracy and see
that has in God we trust on the money.
Yeah, see how much they have to hide and see like the fear that they have just to be themselves and not be able to speak to their families openly and like, kids being concerned about being cut off, being kicked out, losing their support networks. Yeah, it's pretty crazy.
Yeah.
So just learning a lot about that. Yeah, so that's how I got to America, and I still hung out with my rabbi cousin.
Still
also in LA.
What you said you performed to religious audiences as well.
Well,
I think you performed in front of everyone, all sorts of people.
Yeah, I grew up playing for...
I'm also meant the atheist talk.
So sometimes I'll play at interfaith events. So
how are they received? Do people come up to you afterwards?
Some people say I've had people say, you're spiritual despite yourself, because I think, and that's why I wanted to call it an atheist album, because the ideas that I was talking about in some of the songs are about like gratitude for life, and that we're, I still have the same feelings of awe and transcendence and like deep emotions that I still feel. And I think the idea of being an atheist, especially for people who, are still part of a religious community, they will see that as being cold and detached and,
like you don't believe in anything divine to any degree. Yeah.
And so I wanted to change that and associate the word with something like music and art and the ideas that I was talking about, transcendence, love, gratitude. And so I think it really speaks to a lot of people, even if our understanding of like how the world has come to be is different. They can relate to the ideas in it, and I think that's really positive, because then they can see, wow, there's someone that I would think is my enemy or thinks the opposite to me, but we have so much in common.
Yeah, that's really nice.
It's like people think that atheists can't be spiritual either. It's sort of like, it sounded like that's what you were insinuating that person said before, which is such a weird thing to, I don't know when that became so hand in hand either, because spirituality can just be, like you said, sort of appreciating the beauty of things.
Right.
Like,
we might choose different words to describe it, but we, I think we all have the same depth of emotions. And then getting to play like for ex-Jewish groups, people who have really been in extreme religious communities, coming out, needing support, needing to learn how to function in the world because they've been so isolated.
You're telling
and
me that
segregated.
before. You've performed for all sorts of different ex-religious groups.
Yeah, I work with the Council of Ex-Muslims in the UK. They do amazing work because, the punishment for apostasy in Islam is death. So them just calling themselves that openly and being that, being under that label is very brave.
I'm giving a safe space for a lot of people, because coming out of a religion is just not easy. A very hard thing to do. You get shunned away from your society.
Yeah.
It's hard to work. People lose their jobs, right?
Yeah.
All sorts of stuff.
Yeah.
And you've heard lots of crazy stories.
Yeah.
I don't know if you're allowed to share any of that. Because
people that have come out of cults, people that have come out very extreme religious situations. There was one couple that were still in the Jewish community, and they were very, very, very religious. Like, he was a rabbi and she was, they were both in their mid-40s, and, they wore the traditional garb and the wig and everything. They had 3 kids that were at school and were fully engrossed in the community and in the belief system that they'd been brought up with, but they had kind of come to the conclusion on their own that they don't believe anymore.
I wonder how they do when that's all they're around 24/7.
Yeah, I don't know.
That's what I was surprised about. That's why. Like, is it
happens.
biology or for everyone? Like,
No, it happens.
learn
You
about
read
the
about
there
it,
is
you
social-
hear an idea, you start looking at the internet.
Wait, do they not use social media at all?
I think it's becoming more common in the community.
That would
It's being
definitely make
used
a
in
huge
really,
difference.
really
Rabbis,
interesting
aren't
ways. But
There are some famous rabbis. I saw this one in London who has a massive following.
Yeah.
There are.
Fair enough.
Make sure they don't hear my album. No. And yeah, they were in secret, making a plan to get out. You know, the rabbi was secretly studying to get some kind of other qualifications because, you know,
there's some actual Netflix shows at the moment. I mean, that have come out about really religious.
Unorthodox was one.
There's communities and
and they, you know, they were kind of dressed maybe normal for them, but they still looked pretty religious, you know. But they would have to drive as soon as they got close to their neighborhood. They'd have to change back into like their traditional clothes, and they were just, you know, trying to build up and find a way to get out. And how do you break that to their kids? Like just crazy.
It's stuff we hear about, but it feels so far away. But you've actually got to hear it up close and personal.
Yeah, and it's actually been really heartening seeing so many different communities around the whole country and around the world that are just about supporting people that are going through a hard time.
Did you know these hard times were out there before you went through it yourself? Or you kind of just thought everyone had their own religion or their own idea about the world and they were just like happy with it for their whole life kind of thing?
I think I just thought that religion was solely a positive thing. Yeah. You know, until I kind of got a bit older and saw
one thing I've always found interesting is like you just grow up in it, you don't even choose it. It's like you're just forced into it. Sometimes I respect more people that choose to become part of religion or people that are
I think respect's a hard word because you can't not respect someone for being born into something.
No respect, but I have an extra layer. If you know what I mean?
I
because
get what
you weren't born into it, or if you are born into it and you take a break from it and then you come back because you've seen other sides of the world.
As long as you do the research.
Yeah.
So you found yourself touring an Atheist Album. You've obviously fallen into a little bit of a niche with the kind of music you create. Have you been able to like branch out from that at all? Have you wanted
definitely.
to? Yeah,
so the next album that I released was like jazzy folk record, a little bit of blues in there too. It was a collaboration with Adam Levy, who was Nora Jones' guitarist, Tracy Chapman's guitarist. He's an amazing singer-songwriter. His projects are incredible. So that was amazing. We put out that album. Adam came over from America and we toured around Australia. What else I've done? I've continued to make music. I've put out like another album after that, and then anher 3 EPs.
Nice.
So just continued.
You didn't find yourself pigeonholed in any way, or?
No, it's something that I love talking about. So those opportunities and those communities, and like, you know, I'll speak at like conferences. There's a conference I'm going to in August this year in Norway, which is about celebrating dissent. So there'll be people that kind of talk about these issues from all over the world. A lot of female activists, particularly from the Middle East, just really amazing, brave women who like speak out. I'm like, okay, all I do is, you know, sing a song, but I don't want to denigrate that either, because I do think music is really powerful. And I try to use my music to amplify those people's voices that I believe are worth amplifying and supporting.
How do you get an opportunity like that?
Just through the music, getting out and getting around there, and
How did it get out and get around there? Like, it was literally word of mouth. Like, did you have a good marketing plan heading in?
It was me. You know, it's so funny. Like, I had made music before that. I'd made an EP, and you know, I kind of felt like I'm talented. Like, I'm a great singer, and I'm a great songwriter, and I have something to share. But you know, so does everybody else. Like, I found it always really hard to market myself. I just felt like I was kind of bothering people, you know, like I don't need, you know, it's what I do and it's there. But when I made this that record, I felt like so excited about it. I was like, I have something to say, and you should all hear it. You know, it was very genuine. So it didn't feel like it wasn't a labor to market it, because I knew that people would want it. Yeah. And so I sent it around to people. I did research. I found, some of the communities, and I sent it out to folks, and it kind of spread. It was really cool. Like some people that were, popular in that movement shared the music. I was invited to this really big secular rally in 2012 in Washington, D.C., and I got to play on the National Mall to 30,000 people on stage with Bad Religion, Tim Minchin, Richard Dawkins. It's like, it was just...
Richard Dawkins?
That was
Doesn't he, write atheist books?
Yeah. He's a scientist, first of all. He's a biologist, but then he, encountered so much pushback against, what he's teaching about evolution and genetics, and so that kind of pushed him, I think, to kind of come out swinging. But yeah, it was...
I think I had a friend in high school that walked around with a God is not great book
or
something like that.
Hitchens, yeah. It's a great statement piece. But that was my first gig in the US. So
that was your first one?
Yeah.
So 30,000 people.
Yeah,
Wow.
on the National Mall. Yeah. So I got to, hang out with Tim Minchin backstage. It was very cool. So I think, just being there kind of got my music out, and I started getting invitations to come. Yeah. And
I think the key there is also being passionate. Like you said, we've also discussed how when you walk into a room and you're passionate about something, you want to share it. Other people feel that so much more. So even if you post something on social media and you're like, oh, watch this if you want, guys, and be really timid, people are just kind of going to be like, they're not even that sure about it. Why should I be so sure about it?
I think that passion and enthusiasm is contagious.
Have you ever had someone who you wouldn't think would like your music say, I actually really like that?
Your dad?
My dad. No, my dad's going to like everything. He's going to like everything I do.
It sounds beautiful.
It's a little bit biased.
Yeah, like I said, sometimes I'm you know what really moves me? It's not unexpected, but when people just comment on my YouTube video or whatever, and they say, I live in Saudi Arabia and I feel so isolated from everybody around me, and I listen to your music and I feel less alone.
Yeah. Definitely be easier to be in LA than somewhere like Saudi Arabia.
And in Melbourne. Yeah. And I just, that stuff to me makes me feel worthwhile and keeps me going. Okay.
Do you write back to those comments?
Yeah, I write back to every single comment. Every single person that writes to me.
Yeah.
Except the mean ones. I leave them.
Yeah, there's definitely going to be some.
There's some mean ones, Then
do you even read through them?
I read my comments because like I said, I want to reply to people like that. You feel isolated and just tell them you're not, And then I notice some of our other fans will come on and tell those people you're not alone, It's really...
That's what I was going to say. The comment thread has got to be the exciting part. When someone else is like, oh, you're there, I'm here. Wow.
Yeah. It's beautiful. Or sometimes if I'll perform for an organization somewhere in the States, and I put the word out to my fans, and then I'll have people who were there just because of me, but then they get to meet this organization or this community that they could be part of that they didn't know about, and then they find community. I think that's really meaningful too. Really cool.
So outside of the traveling and all that, what else do you do
at the moment? I'm built up to the move in 2016. I moved over permanently to LA, and for the first
And what was drawing you there?
3 years. Well, that was where my fan base really was.
More opportunities.
Was the industry.
Yeah, the industry. But also just, the US for touring. I could just go on the road for months at a time.
A lot more states than here.
And play in a different city every night and not even get back around, by the end of the year. So it's an amazing place to be able to tour. And then, LA was kind of always my first stop. So I started building a bit of my own music community there, a bit of industry. I had a manager at the time when I moved over who was helping me and put me in touch with different writers. I started doing songwriting for other artists as well. And so I moved over in 2016. And for the next 3-4 years, I was on the road constantly. maybe 6 months of the year, and then the rest of the time in LA, trying to build that network and working with other artists and musicians. And then...
Is 6 months a long time to be on the road?
It sounds like ages.
It's like, spread out, I would say, just over the year. But I loved it.
Yeah.
It was amazing. It was, that's the dream, right?
Yeah.
Being on the road, getting better, perfecting your show, perfecting your skills. Like
every state there's like a totally different culture
and
compared
just
to here.
Driving through the country, I would just
beautiful scenery.
So beautiful, like
yeah,
really, really gorgeous country, and just meeting people every night. That it's. Everyone wants to take you out after the show, and like, I'm like, no, I have to go to bed because I have to get up at 7 a.m. tomorrow and drive to the next city. But it was really a lot of house concerts too. Just super indie, DIY, tour booking, listening rooms, club, bars, house concerts.
Is there any one
bigger venues when I can get them?
Any one show that just stands out that you'll never forget, or is it just
any one show?
There'd be so many.
Yeah, it's really hard. I think I love some of the house concerts, where you played for a community, and then you come back years later and you see, you recognize some of the kids have grown up, and some people want to have a jam with you, and it's just that you're really building your own community on the road, and there's, venues and places cities that I've been going back to since I started touring in 2012. So for 8.
You have so many little homes.
8 years.
Many
Yeah,
homes
exactly.
That's amazing.
It's really beautiful. And then when the pandemic hit, I had to stop touring. And that sucked. So I had to kind of pivot. And my best friend and I, Prince Chappelle, he's like a #1 charting producer, songwriter, vocalist, vocal coach. He's just a
bit of everything.
He's a machine. And he's had big hits in the K-pop world. He's worked with really major artists, and so lucky the people that I've met and built as my community there. So we opened a studio and production company together. So we've just, I pivoted to that, and I've been working with artists on their projects. We've been making music for film and TV. I kind of opened a publishing of the company too. And
any particular genre you specialize in with that?
We really have we work in every genre. I think, we both love pop music. I grew up in a wedding band, so I got such a broad education of different styles, and I think that's something that Prince and I are both really proud of. We're chameleons. We can do anything. I'll play, here's a jazz standard with Prince singing, here's a metal song, here's a musical, a musical theater number, here's an R&B song, a rap song. I've had to learn how to do all those styles my whole life, and so this is the chance, I get to really.
You said you even did some K-pop yourself.
I did, yeah.
That's pretty different.
It's different.
It's so different.
It's a lot of fun. It keeps it interesting. I love my music, and I think I put a lot of those broad influences into my own music, but I think I'd go crazy if I had to do just the same genre every day. It's so
I always
fun.
wonder how artists do that.
It's so fun getting
That's why
to
I asked
do...
if you were pigeonholed into this thing, and now you only have to release protest music or something like that. I was you'd probably just get a bit angry in your head too all the time, right? If you just
always have to be in that world.
Always thinking about what's wrong with this, or why I'm angry about this situation. Sometimes you just want to have fun.
Right, and music is about fun, and it's playing. They call it playing. You have to play. You have to have that fun and that freedom. And I was actually telling Raph the other day, there was it was funny because I was working at the time on an English translation version of the song Baraye, which was during the Mahsa Amini protests in Iran. Shervin Hajipour was the songwriter and artist. He created this song. It was really beautiful, and I think it really resonated with what was happening at the time in his country. And he made a list of... He took tweets that people had written about why they were protesting and what they were protesting for, and turned it into a song. And at the moment, he's in jail. He's been imprisoned because of this, this act of defiance. And it's just an act of art and expression. But so I was working with an Iranian activist, Mariam Namazi, and we planned to make, an English translation to help spread the message. The message spread on its own just fine. He ended up winning the Grammy for protest song of the year. I think.
Wow. Whilst in jail.
I think before he was in prison he won, but he's in prison now. And I worked with a friend of mine, Frederick Taylor, at Tomorrow Pictures, and he created the accompanying video for the song. And so this was very heavy. It was very important to me. And, I was working on that at the same time. I was working on this EDM track that was talking about bitches and pulling out a rack. And I had to explain the words to my dad. My dad's like, what's a rack? I'm like, well. So it was just, I loved that day. And there were other things going on that day too, but it just, I love doing everything.
A variety of everything.
And I think I do that in the industry side as well, because I have worked across the independent sector. I have, I have the production company in the studio. I have the publishing arm, and I do a lot of freelance publishing administration as well for artists, which surprised me that I like copyright management. It sounds boring as hell, but it's really fun, and getting to do licensing for film, TV, for international broadcasts, learning as you go, that stuff's really fun. And then it's also really empowering, because I meet a lot of amazing independent artists who are investing in themselves, who are working hard on themselves, and they don't have that basic knowledge of what are their copyrights, how do they advocate for themselves, how do they negotiate for themselves in the situations they're paying to put themselves in.
Is that something they think about a lot but just don't know what to do, or they don't think about until it's too late?
I think
usually?
It's got to be a mixture of both, right?
Bit of a mix, yeah.
And I think there are some things that are misleading, you think you put the time in to work it out, and you say, I'm going to join a PRO in Australia, that's APRA. And we're lucky here in Australia, APRA, AMCOS are two organisations combined, and they will collect all of your royalties, your performance and your mechanical royalties. So you're covered. You only need to join one organisation. But in the US, the PROs only collect the performance royalties. So I think people think that they've gone to that level of professionalism where they've signed up and they're collecting, and maybe they've set up a publishing company with the PRO, and they think that they've done their due diligence. And they're almost led to believe that, I feel, a little bit, by the way that it's set up. And unfortunately, they're not. It's not everything that needs to be done. So I do really love teaching people about that and empowering people to understand,
Did you do it right originally?
How to monetize. Sorry.
Did you do it right originally? Or did you learn
I had
later?
to learn by myself, it was learning by doing. And, even once you learn about it and you hear about it and you understand it, it's not intuitive, so it doesn't really stay. It was just by...
Yeah, you don't... even with our business, there's things you hear, but you don't really keep it in until you have to actually use it or utilize it. And then sometimes that's not until 2-3 years down the line kind of thing.
And then it's what did that person tell me about it? And then you have to do it again and again and again. And when I found that, as I'm working with, getting licensing for film and TV, then I have to know. And then... At that point,
what's that like? What's the potential concept? Is it kind of like when you pirate a movie and you might get charged $50,000 or something?
Well, I've been told by by one of the companies I was working with that I need to have an insurance for $1 million because it's on broadcast TV, and it's if you mess up, we won't work with you again. So then I can't then work with, at least on the pitching side, I can't work with artists that don't have all that stuff really, really tight.
Does that hold a lot of artists back, you think, then?
Absolutely.
Yeah, right.
And that's something
because they probably wouldn't even think, because I imagine most people, if you receive an application from someone and they don't have this stuff sorted, you're probably just going to deny the application as opposed to go, sorry, we can't because you haven't got all these ancillary things sorted, right? So they probably just never learned to do it.
Or I say, hey, I do freelance publishing administration. I can help you.
Yeah, you might be bad. You probably do, but I'm saying there's probably a lot of people that would just deny them, right? And wouldn't even tell them why.
Yeah, absolutely. You can't you can't get to the next stage.
Yeah.
Because it's just too difficult. There's some crazy stories. I heard this awesome story from, we went to CBS, and the music supervisor there was just telling us what it's like getting clearance for songs, because it's like, he'll find out that day the song's going to be played on the show, we need it cleared, and they need all interested parties to sign off, and sometimes it's hard to track those people down. And there was one song that he needed to clear, and I think the band had broken up, and he'd found a few people and got them to sign off, but there was like 1.5% missing. He couldn't understand what it was, and he found the manager, and none of the guys in the band remembered who it was. And the manager remembered, oh yeah, we had a writing session, and the pizza delivery guy came in at the session and like came up with a line, so they just gave him 1.5%. Yeah. So they just, he made that call in that moment that they could sign off on their behalf.
On the pizza delivery guy. that pizza delivery guy's listening to it right now. He saw that TV show.
I've caused a lawsuit. No, but just, that's an extreme example.
Funny,
but chasing those things, it's going to make people's lives harder.
Well, there's probably a lot of like undercover. There's probably a lot of like random jobs in LA where people want to be singers too. Like, love that little opportunity there.
That's an interesting thing though, because I'm interested to know what you think about like sampling in music as well, because I know like J. Cole, for instance, is a rapper who feels like you should just be able to sample music that's out there. Like you shouldn't need someone's permission to do that.
I think you can be able to do it, but then
if you want money from it.
If you want to release it.
Yeah, no, but then there's, I think it's moving towards that where there will be automated royalties. Where just automatically, if you want to use something, sure, but then the creators of that will collect a share of the royalty.
What would that be? Like a website where you can kind of, like how now there's art lists where it's like pretty low tier artists, I suppose, are uploading their music. So you're now thinking like Ed Sheeran could say, here's my song for $5,000, you can download it and use it, kind of thing. Like, is that where it's going to go?
I think a lot of...
Because I think he does do that, doesn't he? Like, I think a lot of wedding videographers or wedding editors actually use Ed Sheeran songs because you can get a fairly decent, like I'm sure it still costs a few $1,000s, but a decent licensing fee for a pop song anyway.
Oh, that's so interesting. Like, the only I grew up singing in wedding bands, so I've known a lot of wedding videographers over the years, and so we're always on team. Like when there's a break, go out, get some food together.
We're always friends with the photographers on sets.
That's it.
Look, I'm not sure how it would work, but I think the major organizations or major corporations that are buying up all the publishing rights, they're going to understand how to create these micro licensing situations. And then it's just negotiating. I mean, that's kind of like what happens now, like on TikTok when people use the song, like they get a small royalty. So I think it will be something like that.
And then I suppose I never understood, is a production company the middleman between like the licensing person essentially?
No. So when I talk about my production company, it's like
different thing.
It's a music production company. So we're actually making the records with the artists and making the music for the film and TV. But the publishing company is the side. The publishing, that's the one that does the licensing, the pitching. You could almost say it's kind of like a little bit of a sync agency that I'm building.
That's kind of like the whole process, right? That's pretty. I'm surprised more people don't do that. Do a lot of people do that? Publishing and
I think that's part of the role of a publisher.
Right.
Is to get your writer's catalog into film and TV, and I think the difference would be like a sync agency is not the publishing representative of the tracks that they're pushing. They've just got a bunch of tracks and they're looking for opportunities, whereas a publisher is also doing the administration side for the artist. So I have both. I have myself and my works and my team that are assigned to my publishing company that I administer for and take care of all the copyright management and look for other opportunities as well. And then I have, just a catalog of talented people and creators that I will pitch for relevant opportunities for as well. So that's why it's like both.
Yeah, cool. Then is it often like just songs, like a regular 3-minute song being thrown into something, or is it actual like scores, like
it's different,
all sorts of things?
Time.
Cool.
Just and whatever the...
Are you involved with their music videos?
Yes. So as well as doing the publishing and the production company, I also have like a label services company. So because I just learned to do, like I said, I like to do everything.
But the artists probably like that one-stop shop. It makes it a lot easier.
Those are the services. These are all the things that I've needed over the years. So as I've learned,
saying, they trust you too because you're an artist.
I hope so.
Like first
But I've learned how to do all those things for myself and for the people around me. So then, it just makes sense when people come to me for music, and then they need, additional help with like management or just project management if it's for a particular release. So yeah, like we'll help artists put together, release plans. We'll help them work out like what assets they need for a social media strategy. And then I have an amazing partner with my label services, Saba Abraha. She's an amazing artist too, like really incredible, title featured, NPR featured, singer-songwriter. And she is a creative director, stylist. So like, we work together to, bring the production team for music videos and for photo shoots and all the things that you need to get your music out there.
Well, it sounds like you know what we need. So can I ask you a question?
Yeah.
Let me throw the scenario at you.
Okay, here we go.
The Australian live music scene apparently seems to be in shambles right now, with things like Splendour in the Grass being cancelled, Groove in the Moo, Falls Festival, lots of big live multi-day festivals that Australia is quite known for. I'd have to imagine Splendour is one of, if not the biggest in the country, right?
Yeah, it's really sad.
What's going on? What can we do to change this?
It's a great question.
Is it happening everywhere? As someone that's in America, is that happening there?
Yeah, I have to be honest, I don't know the answer to that question because I haven't been in Australia for the last 10 years. I haven't really been part of the scene here. So I don't know. I think COVID took a lot out of everybody, I don't feel like it's happening in America. I think that they have the population to support it.
Is the cost of living rising a lot in America the same way here?
It is definitely rising for sure. What do you think? I know you're not...
That would have to be my best guess, is just cost of living. Like people can't afford to spend like $500 on a ticket to go to a place for 3 days and have those 3 days off work. So they're also not getting paid. It's like, it kind of ends up being like a couple $1,000 expense, right? And then I've been seeing something recently, like $1,000 is not much to receive, but a lot to owe. So it's like when people are like, fuck, I have to pay thousands of dollars to get to this place. And then that's without food, without drinks. It's got to be that to me. I mean, like it's, people are always going to say things like lineups too, but it's like people have fans, right? Like a lineup's always going to sell if it's a good festival kind of thing. So I truly don't know.
I think there are people who are dedicated to the festivals and go no matter what the lineup's going to be. I think, but I don't know how they're going to fix it. And I hear people, when I come back to Melbourne, my friends who are musos are saying, this venue's closing down, this venue's closing down. But also new venues are popping up.
Yeah. I suppose that's all you can hope is like, I know Big Day Out, for instance, hasn't been around for a while, but a lot of people like just bring that back, like a one-day kind of thing. Maybe it is that. Maybe it's try bring certain things back, try change things around a little bit. I don't know.
Do you think live shows will always be a thing?
Yes.
I think it has to be. That's why there has to be some sort of solution, because it's like people aren't going to be happy if it just all shuts down and there's just no option for it. So
but then going to be probably new ones will come along, new festivals.
So is that it? Is it kind of just has to reach a rebirth?
Well, maybe they have to find a way to make cheaper tickets or something.
Yeah. Like you said, maybe more day festivals.
Yeah.
Just one day ones.
But it's like, I also wonder if there's because it's like Splendour specifically, I suppose, had the bad year where the day one got cancelled. So I suppose people the next year weren't then too keen on it. It's like next year now people, if it does go ahead, are going to be like, well, it was cancelled last year. So there's also the domino effect of like the reputation from the outside. So I feel like that's probably the long-term effect of it, of something like Splendour specifically, I guess. But I don't know. Other ones, it just seems, it seems like there has to be. But making cheaper tickets it only solves the problem on the front end, right? Because then the artists don't get paid as much, the vendors don't get paid as much. So like,
I mean, that's one thing I haven't done. Like run a festival. It sounds like
it sounds like a nightmare.
An incredible amount of work.
There's always something that goes wrong.
But look, it's interesting to know that America is doing okay, and obviously a lot more infrastructure, a lot more people, but I suppose there must be something that the Australian industry has to look to
What's that huge one they do?
in America.
Massive one, yeah.
There's like Coachella.
Yeah. They're not cancelling that, are they?
Doubt
Not
it.
anytime soon.
People travel across the world to go to things like that. So, yeah. That's it too. It's like money can't really be the main issue if people are still going across the world to go to Coachella.
It's the first thing a lot of people do as soon as they finish high school is go to these festivals. Yeah.
And that's it too. It's a big thing, like just to say you've been there. So if something like Coachella closed down and people can no longer say I was at Coachella, like that's a thing that disappears as well.
Yeah.
So it's such an important. It needs to be figured out. That's why it's. I only brought it up because it's so topical.
The live scene here is so special. Like I remember being 15, 16 and like getting to go and play at like bars with my band for the first time on the week, and they give you like a weekend slot. You just, how else are you going to cut your teeth? And we have such amazing artists that do really well here and do really well overseas, and like this is that live scene is a launching pad for them to develop and build and grow. And so we can't lose it.
I hope we don't.
When you decided to move to LA, did you know like I'm going to make it work no matter what? Or were there sometimes?
I did. Like, I didn't know how, but
because you've gone from not knowing many people when you moved there to having heaps of connections and studio, everything. I
think I'm really lucky because I was always encouraged to just believe in myself by my family, and just, told you can do anything, whatever you put your mind to.
I think it's also kind of telling that you guys, I don't know, maybe is it a Jewish thing or specifically your guys' family, right? You're both pretty like community based, put yourself out there. Is it a Jewish thing? Is it like, is your family quite just like that? I
think everyone in our family does whatever they're interested in, just goes for it.
I think it's a little bit of both. When Raf and his dad came to visit me in LA in 2018, you were just getting into filming, right? Like, do you want to talk a little bit about that?
The documentary?
Yeah.
Yeah, I was traveling around the world making a documentary with him, and we were in Mexico staying at a hospital for a few weeks, and we're like, oh, you're in LA? Let's go visit you over there.
And
is she in the documentary at all then?
Yeah.
A little bit. I think I made a song for it too.
Yeah, there's music. And
get the Academy Award for Best Original Song one day.
We had
Best Original Song in a documentary.
Had someone offer, when they heard that my dad had cancer, to take us on a small plane that they were a pilot of.
End his life early.
Give us a tour. Show us.
Everyone was so nice. Was so nice.
Yeah, everyone was really nice. Yes, he came to that. That was fun.
Some crazy. I think when you put yourself out there, crazy things happen and doors open.
I definitely think in LA, you never know what's going to happen day to day.
Right.
Yeah.
Always run into the most interesting people. It's such an inspiring place.
And so I love.
Is there not like the side of homelessness? Like,
that's
it's
not to get all dark about that, but like
it
can't be just inspiration everywhere, right? Like there's got to be an element of chaos. It's more just
I went to a place called Skid Row there, which is where people live in tents and stuff. That was crazy.
Yeah.
You can see a lot of people go there. People come from all over the world there to like follow their dreams, and then there's a lot of people who are looking pretty dreamless and have a pretty hard life, and it's a strange mix, really.
Does that cultivate some sort of creativity then, just because you're seeing
I don't know
all of it?
Some sense of desperation, but I think a majority of people in America are like one tragedy, one health issue away from homelessness.
I think I've heard the stat that most people in America don't have like $500 in their back pocket for an emergency or something like that.
It's pretty crazy. And the thing is, like, I can live like that. I think we as creatives and freelancers, we get used to that, things being feast or famine and kind of going back and forth between that. And I don't have dependents, so, I can take those risks. But I think it's, I have that privilege of living my dream life and following my ambitions. I think there's a lot of people who are just working really hard, working full time, trying to support their families, and are still in that month to month situation. So it's definitely tough. But I think that when I went there, I just I had already had that experience of booking my own tours, doing it myself and seeing that I could, you know.
How do you even book your own tour? Do you
Get
contact
something out
every
of it.
venue
I
along the way?
Spreadsheets. My
You just
entire
call-
life is run by
Call
spreadsheets.
every venue.
You know, but
Yeah.
I find artists that are similar to me and look at the routes they've taken
Yeah,
and
right.
venues they've played at, and I kind of sketch out my, you know, the time it's going to take me to drive in the region that I want to tour, and I look up, I research venues, and it's so easy, you know. I remember I'm friends with Max Merritt, and he's the Kiwi legend, singer, songwriter, sadly passed recently. And we were talking to his old manager, who was saying, like, back in the day when bands wanted to go on tour, the manager would have to go first before the tour and inspect the venues and make sure that they've got all the equipment that they need, and like actually route the tour themselves, which are like, I just sit at home on my computer and can build my whole
That sounds pretty expensive.
tour and build my own posters and but, you know, and just like the tools that are available to artists these days are really incredible. It feels very much more democratized than it was before.
And is there like that industry rate as well, or do you have to negotiate with each venue?
You negotiate with each venue.
Every single one. Like,
Yeah, you have to have an agreement with every venue, and it's, you know, make sure they've got the right equipment and everything you need. And
the only thing about doing it online is you have no idea what to expect when you walk into the place. No idea, like who's going to show up,
but
what,
you know,
what it
you've
looks
got
like.
Google reviews for,
Yeah, you can
for
read
venues. You can see
reviews,
pictures of the venues. You can look at other artists that have played there and check out you know, most.
So you do
venues
quite a
have
bit of research?
Instagrams. Yeah, I do weeks and weeks of research before I book a tour. And I think just that process of saying, okay, I'm going to make something, I'm going to do this myself. I think that I love the independent sector. I love independent musicians and artists. I love DIY. Like, you can literally take over the world yourself. Just one little bit at a time. And that's what I feel like I was doing. And I was learning how to do all these things. I was having the vision and then doing it. And so that made me confident in myself to say, okay, I'm going to go and work it out. And I'm continuing to work it out. I'm continuing to learn. And I love, you know, people in America are very encouraging of that, you know. We, like, everybody hypes each other up. It's like, you going for it? Let's go. Like, let's do it. And I love that energy. Whereas, you know, we were kind of talking a little bit about what it can be like here. You know, I have a story that I tell people sometimes where someone here said to me, "Oh, what's such a nice person like you doing in LA?" You know, making music with my best friends every day, like having a ball. And he said, "Well, just make sure you know when to give up."
Really?
Dead ass. Like, that's what
Where
he
was this,
said.
in Melbourne?
No, that was in Darwin.
Okay.
And it was just like, I was
Damn you,
speechless.
Darwin.
And I said, I'll never give up. I'll never give up whatever it is.
Yeah.
I'll find a way to make sure that...
Giving up is such a sad... That's almost like... To me, that's like, imagine you're a guitar player. You just like smashing it in half, burying it in the ground, and like burning it on fire. It's like, no.
Yeah.
Even if you're not like a full-time musician, you can still chill in the weekend, play. Like, never give it up. Like,
Right. And I don't know exactly what he meant by that, because I would I can't even imagine, because I would never say that to anyone in my life.
What else are you going to do, though?
I'll give you an example. Like, so I moved over to... When I moved over to LA, I was with my partner, Rob. We're separated now, but we're still besties. And we moved over together, and he said to me when we were in LA, I'm not willing to do what it takes. I'm not willing to do what's necessary to make it in music. Not even to make it, sorry. I'm not willing to do what it takes for this to be my full-time career, playing music. And I get that. And then, I mean, he still works in the music industry. He works at like one of the biggest studio instrument rental companies, like in the US, and he loves it. He loves what he does. He gets to be a gear nerd all day, and stuff that again would be really hard to do at that scale here. But I said, I'm willing to do whatever it takes for this to be my job. I'll sing whatever shitty jingle.
Yeah. You do some Christmas parties?
Right. Yeah. Like, I will do whatever it takes. And like, I understand both perspectives and I respect both perspectives.
That's
too.
what I think it's important that he recognized that. I think there's a lot of people that
At least
think they're willing to do it, but aren't actually willing to do it as well. And then wonder why it's not happening. They're sitting at home wondering why the phone isn't ringing. And it's like, well, you have to ring the phone.
But he loves music. He wanted to be in that world of music.
It's almost like for him, it's too spiritual for him to put it through that meat grinder of what he has to do. And, he knows, because there's things, it's not just about being good at music. It's like, are you willing to do the networking? Are you willing to like present yourself in a certain way? Are you, and he wasn't. He wasn't. Like, he'd be in sessions. I tried to drag him into some sessions and he would get grumpy at what was happening because he wasn't happy with the way that things were going musically. And it's like, you're here as a session player, just play, but he can't do it. He loves music so much. And so do I, but it's a different thing. And now he works in the industry, but he can come home and pick up one of his,
That's so the same with videography world. People we meet as well, do you think?
Yeah, well, it's even like the language people use as well. Like, I've kind of just always said, like, there's certain things I'm not going to have happen. Like, I'm just not going to not let this work out kind of thing as well. So it's, it's the things you say to yourself, and then, you meet other people that are just kind of like, kind of going for it, but you see they're not grinding sort of thing.
But I think a lot of the thought is like, what else am I going to do? Yeah. What else can I do?
Or what else would you do that would make you nearly as happy, nearly as fulfilled?
Nothing.
And that's also it too, where it's like, whenever I do have those days where I'm like, oh, it'd be so much easier to just like go get a job somewhere and do something. I'm also like, but I'd be so miserable within minutes of that happening.
Right.
I'm like the misery
the
misery I feel of like whatever is happening there is nothing compared to what it feels like.
Yeah.
Not doing something you want to do. So
and just to get to be in the zone doing what you love.
But I think some people just don't feel that way. Some people are kind of like, as long as I get to do what I love some of the time, I can, I don't know, be a lackey.
I have to say, I find what you've done really inspiring and really cool to know. Someone in my own family has moved overseas, and your brother also moved to China, which is pretty cool, and speaks fluent Chinese.
Especially to LA too. LA just seems like a place where you go when you have aspirations, and then you realize that your aspirations aren't going to be met.
There's definitely an element of that.
So to know that you've actually made it is awesome too.
Yeah.
You're actually the second person that we've had on the podcast that's done pretty well in LA, so maybe the stereotype's all wrong.
Maybe you guys should come over and show me. No, I think it's just I'm not going to ever give up.
I have a very because I've never been to America, but love American pop culture, like movies, as much as I love like English stuff as well.
Right.
But I have a very idealized vision of the whole thing. So when people tell me that LA is like a dirty rat hole, I'm like, no, it's brilliant.
So funny. I just moved to Hollywood, and I say, people are like, where do you live? I'm like, Hollywood. And everyone's like, ooh. I'm like, oh no.
Is it like, that is not. It's like the movie La La Land.
It's not.
Not quite.
Just going, it's a lot seedier than people think, and even the whole thing of it is. But it's I love the problem solving of the business side of things. I think that it's almost as creative. You have to like employ your creative skills, like work out what move am I going to make next, and how am I going to make that work.
And it's also another thing too, where you can see like incremental progress, like even intangible things like negotiating in a conversation or something. A few conversations in, you're going to realize that you handled it way better. You kind of got more what you wanted out of the conversation. Right. And that's another exciting part about it. Like you're developing different skills.
Seeing that personal growth.
How would it compare to New York if you were to have moved there?
Well, I would be a lot colder.
That's all you can say.
There's something pretty amazing about like 80% of the days being 28 degrees and just like walking outside and
good lifestyle in that sense.
Sun, like
But
apparently the eggs aren't as good in the milk.
Not as good as here. No. But
sure, just like all the produce, all the dairy can't be.
I just come here. I'm like no. But I had some. I have done some jobs in LA, in New York, where I stayed. I was staying in Brooklyn for a summer, and that was amazing. I loved living there.
It sounds like Brooklyn's a bit of a creative hub right now too.
It was beautiful. Like they just have bikes you can rent, and like you can't get around. I can't get around LA in a bike. Maybe someone can, but it's not me. And I was getting around on the bike everywhere I needed in Brooklyn. It was like beautiful old buildings, and Yeah, it was gorgeous. But, you know, I found my home for sure.
Yeah.
Like, I love it there.
You're going to stay there for the indefinite future?
It looks
Seems
that
like
way.
it.
Yeah.
Cool.
Do you recommend? Should we move there?
I'd love to, honestly. My thing is I'm dating a teacher and schools get shot up all the time in America.
Oh, no.
But
So I'm kinda
there's
like, I
like
don't
millions
wanna-
of schools.
Yeah,
Yeah.
there's millions of guns.
Millions of guns
Millions
too.
of shootings too, yeah.
That's how- yeah.
So, like, I hate that I have that pessimistic mindset, but imagine if I was like, baby, we're moving to wherever, and then, like, there's a shooting at that school, and it's like, I'm
I
like,
see some of my friends
Yeah.
on Facebook, you know.
oh, that's
put
crazy.
up
But don't they?
sometimes. They put up sometimes, there's a shooter at school, we're waiting to hear.
Yeah.
Like,
Don't some of the schools have like good security, like where you put your bag through those things?
Yeah, but I don't
Check if
want
there's
to
guns in
work at a place like that.
I
Like
don't
that
know.
that's
You have to
crazy.
feel
I don't
that's.
have-
That's a whole different conversation. So, like,
Yeah.
yeah.
But
outside
I
of
was.
that, would love to go to LA.
Yeah, we'll have to.
need
Hopefully,
to
we
do a
at least
tour.
get some shoots there. But yeah, I was curious to know, like, what's your biggest achievement, or what are you most proud of that you've done?
Is it being on this podcast?
It's definitely being on this podcast. That's what I was going to say before. Like, I'm just seeing you, and I'm not answering your question right now, but like, just seeing you, you know, from like right at the start of your journey in film, and it's just cool to like jump ahead and see where you are now and everything you're doing and what you've built for yourself. Like, that's inspiring too. I'm really, really proud of you. Well done. Well done, guys. And I'm telling you, the best thing is like finding good people to work with, because that makes it fun. It makes you more motivated. When you win, you're not just winning for yourself, you're winning for your friends and your team, and that's the best.
And even like building the community, like Marty and the record store, like the people that we have coming through here. Yeah, all of it's awesome. Love it.
Yeah. So I guess my proudest achievement, I think I kind of mentioned it before, like when I know that my music has impacted somebody, like that just means everything to me, because I know.
So your proudest achievement is YouTube comments.
YouTube comments. There we go. That's why I'll never give up, because all it takes is YouTube
better
comments.
than-
Just one.
That's
I
success.
think it's
One YouTube comment.
It's better than TikTok comments.
But like, you know, I know how much it meant when a song I heard as a, you know, at any point in my life touched me, moved me, made me feel less alone, made me feel understood, made me feel heard. Like, yeah, just knowing that you have the steps that you've taken in your life have led you to be able to have that impact on someone else. Absolutely my proudest achievement. And, you know, another one that always stuck with me is someone just saying like, you're singing how I see the world and you make me feel beautiful. It's like,
Nice.
all right, I won luck. I did. I did. Also, opening for Wu-Tang Clan was pretty cool.
That's awesome.
That was very cool.
Why are we hoping for Wu-Tang?
I got to open for Wu-Tang at the next secular. So, you know, I did that big...
They're doing religious.
Yeah. So I did that big show on the
I guess
National
you can't
Mall.
have all of the artists be religious.
So they had
Wu-Tang?
they had another
Wu-Tang forever.
secular conference called the Reason Rally in 2016 when I moved over. So they were playing at the
I suppose they're actually a little
at
bit
the
political,
Reason
aren't
Rally.
they?
Yeah. And so that was really cool. And
Did you get to meet them?
Johnny Depp was and Johnny Depp was meant to be performing too, but then there was the controversy around that. But so when I moved to I moved over there and went straight to sing at this event. So there was a Great Noise 11 article that said like Shelley Segal moves to the US to open for Johnny Depp and Wu-Tang Clan. I was like, okay, that headline, that's definitely going in the greatest hits pile.
You can have your like meaningful, heartfelt one, and then you can have your like little flex one.
Right, exactly. Also, you know, working with my friend Prince, and just the team that I have are like amazing. The production team we've built is like really phenomenal. Worked with Beyonce, Nicki Minaj, like just Natasha Bedingfield, just the most talented people that I have on my team in my corner. It's such a privilege to be around them and like, you know, get to work with them and learn from them. And so with Prince had a Billboard number one with NCT 127 with his song Sticker. And so I got to be the publisher on that song when that happened. So that was really cool. I had like, you know, Billboard number one and was kind of jumping in the street on the phone to my dad, and this woman was driving past, and she was like, I don't know what it happened, but I'm happy for you. So I was clearly like very happy, you know. yeah, it's just there's little moments. There's so many of them, and I think when you're somebody that always strives to be at the next level, which I know all my team around me are like that as well, and my collaborator Kevin Anyeji, Kubla Khan is his artist name. You know, he says to me like, we have to stop and appreciate these moments because it's easy to
smell the roses.
It's easy to forget them. Like you achieve something and you get there like, right, that's great. Let's go next. Like,
I was just imagining you're telling me like cool thing after cool thing of what you're doing in LA, but it's probably so normal to you on a day to day. You don't even think about it.
Right. Like I remember being excited about it at first, but then you're like, well, that's the new norm. So we have to go up. Another thing I'm super, super proud of was I work with Vanessa Amorosi, who is like the greatest vocalist of all time.
Number one.
That's just the way it is, everybody.
It's just a fact of life.
She is the goat. And we, you know, she opened her own independent label with her manager and with myself, and I was so grateful to be able to get to do that with her. And the first album that she released on her own label after being, you know, with major label teams of 60 plus people, like we did it as just an all-girl team, just a really, really, really small team doing that with her. And the album was called City of Angels, and it's an incredible gospel record. She's a freaking genius. Everyone in the world should listen to that record. And, you know, it was the number one Australian album. It got top 10 on the overall charts, which is really hard to do. And it got an ARIA nomination for Best Soul R&B Record as well. So that was like very, very proud achievement. Yeah.
You've worked with a lot of interesting people.
Yeah.
Yes. And
I'm sure many more to come as well.
yeah.
It's been a long journey so far, but probably a much longer one ahead of you, right?
Right, exactly.
Is that what's exciting about it too? Like we get excited about our industry is like we're not like athletes. We're not going to run out of juice by like 40 kind of thing.
Right.
We can still hone our skills, still keep getting better.
Right.
Do you reckon you get it?
I saw Peter Gabriel last year at the Forum, sold out. It's one of the best shows I've ever been to in my life. I kind of prepped myself mentally, not to, you know, this is horrible, but just like maybe his voice isn't going to be what it was in his 70s and like...
How do you keep your voice going for so long?
He was phenomenal. Like, it just blew me out of the water. I was like, okay, so I got like 40 more years. I can still, you know, at least. Yeah, it's not a sprint. It's a marathon.
Yeah.
And I am excited.
Do you have like some self-care routine to keep your voice working?
I'm shocking. No, like I remember 'cause people say you can't eat cheese. I used to do this this like jazz covers gig back in Port Melbourne back in the day, and like I'd do 2 sets, and in between my set I just like smash a pizza, and everyone that was a singer was just like, what are you doing? I'm like, no. it doesn't really affect me.
My old mate was saying it the other day because he didn't have any pizza.
Oh yeah. Yeah, it's artist.
What was that?
We did some shooting with Reese Maston, and he just wasn't eating pizza.
And he wasn't supposed to.
And he said it like it was a thing, and I didn't realize it was a thing.
Yeah.
Pizza
Cheese
specifically.
is supposed to knock you up. But I'm pretty lucky like that.
You can just eat whatever you want.
I think I am very cautious though about
chain
like
smoking and eating pizza.
I am very cautious about certain things. Like if I'm out,
you don't vape.
I quit smoking because of singing.
I didn't even know that you smoked.
I know. Don't tell my parents.
No, they're going to hear it on this for sure.
Right. But I'm very careful. Like when you're out at night and it's really loud and you kind of got to scream over people. Like I tend to just kind of sit quietly and try to listen.
I think I do that just because I'm lazy. I don't want to compete with so many noises. Like I can speak loud, but sometimes I just don't want to.
Right, and I could do it, but I don't want to strain my voice like that. If I'm tired, I try to sleep more, and I try, you know, just to drink a lot of water and take care of myself. When I'm on the road, I have to be very serious about like sleep, very serious about hydration. Very serious about not, you know, your fans want to take you out to dinner after the show, which is so nice. And like, awesome, please, yes, buy me dinner. But like, you know, and also just, you know, have that connection, which is really cool. But I can't always do it. I just need to take care of myself.
How often would you say yes to that?
yes to that.
Sometimes.
More often than not, because it's so nice. It's like it's really nice. And then you hear people's stories like after the show too, and they tell you like how they found your music, or like I met a girl who, you know, her dad loved the songs, and he passed, but she like came because she wanted to hear like her dad's favorite artist. That was like, I love connecting with people. It's very, very meaningful. But I do, I end up saying yes more often than not.
Like, sorry, I need to go to bed, and like on the way to the car, you text them like, "Nah, it's okay, I'll come."
He's like, "Can we get it for takeaway?" You're just like walking and eating, walking back to the hotel.
But yeah, another cool thing, maybe one of the last things we could talk about is how you're going to help you helped your dad.
Oh yeah,
his own album.
Right.
After all of this, he
beautiful.
helped you with your first one.
It's a nice circle. So yeah, basically, like I said, my dad plays traditional klezmer music, and I've been hassling him for the last few years to record an album, because it's a folk tradition. So like the songs, there's not like a correct way of playing the songs. Like different bands will play them and interpret them in their own way. And my dad and his musical partner, Paul Glass, and the rest of like some other guys in the band have been playing this music for 40 years, and that 40 plus years. And they are like the soundtrack to our community in a lot of ways. They've played for generations of families. Simchas is like a celebration. So anniversaries, bar mitzvahs, birthday parties. They've played at weddings and then played at the bride and groom's child's bar mitzvah. It's like really, really special. And I feel like if they don't record it, it's not going to be preserved. So I was hassling him for years and years. And last year I was at a party and I was complaining to this guy about my dad not making his album and how it's never going to happen. And he just got very serious with me, and he said, "That's on you." He said, "You're a producer. That's your job. Like, you help artists make their records. You have to do that. Because if you don't make it happen, it's never going to happen."
It's like a plumber being like, "Why is Mum's toilet broken? God damn it."
Exactly. He was just like, "Wake up." And then he was really serious, and he said, "I'll just be straight with you. Like, my dad passed when I was 19, and anything can happen at any time. And if you don't make that album happen, it's never, and it never happens. Like, you have to live with that for the rest of your life." I was like, damn, I got shivers down my arms. I called my dad.
Left the party.
I left the party and I went next door and I called my dad. And I said, "That's it. It's happening. It's happening. You've got 4 weeks. I'm booking everything. I'm booking the studio. I'm booking the engineer.
It's 3 a.m.
I'm booking. It's more 3 a.m. for me. I was like, I'm booking the musicians. I'm booking the rehearsal spaces. I'm booking you singing lessons to help you get back, in shape after the pandemic.
Yeah.
And all you have to do.
You couldn't even be
show.
like, "Let's do it over the next year," because
No.
then it would never happen.
No,
Like,
it wouldn't.
this has to happen now.
And, you're doing it, and all you have to do is show up. And he did. And I flew back for 3 days, and I produced the record for them.
Nice.
And it's just like, it's done. I'm so happy. Like, it's preserved.
It's off your bucket list.
It's there forever, and it's such a beautiful record.
And he's happy with it?
He loves it. He's so proud. Like, that album is like, it's party music. It's energy. It's like, decades and decades of the soundtrack of our community, and it's something really special. And I'm gonna release it with them in June, July this year, and then I'm gonna take them on tour around the world. I'm gonna take my dad on tour around the world playing the music that he's one of the best at in the world. So
beautiful.
And it's so beautiful because he helped me make my first album about
full circle
becoming an atheist, and I'm
saying
helping
you should perform.
make his album about which is traditional Jewish music. So I think it's quite a beautiful.
You're going to perform atheist music with the religious as you travel around?
I don't know about that.
One song on, one song off.
Who wins? It's like instead of a debate, you have like a song off, like
an
at the end of the show.
There's one song that I do.
That's fun.
At my shows that I do sing a Hebrew song.
Yeah.
And it's a song that my dad sings every week in the synagogue. That I'm not allowed. I'm allowed to sing it with him, but I can't sing it unaccompanied. Yeah. And like I said, for so long, I felt so disconnected to my culture because of, the issues that I took with it. But I feel differently now as I'm older, and I've, just been through this whole journey with my beliefs and culture, and meeting so many other people who been through so much in that area, and I feel like actually it's mine. You know, it doesn't belong to them. It doesn't belong to the rabbis who interpret it to say I can't do this. It's actually my heritage and my culture. It belongs to me just as much as it belongs to any of them. So I'm just going to take it and do what I want with it. And so I sing this song in the bars and jazz clubs or wherever I'm playing, and I tell this story of how I'm not allowed to sing this song at the synagogue, and then I sing it. And then I go straight into, and it's this a cappella, really haunting, beautiful Hebrew song. And then I go straight into my song Eve, that talks about how the religious texts, define and determine women's roles. And it's very powerful. And that's my favorite part of my set, really.
That's cool. What a story.
Yeah, I was going to say, your brother speaks Chinese.
Yes.
And he's a bit of a singer too.
Yeah,
so
he's a great singer. He grew up in the wedding band. He grew up in the wedding band with me. Actually, there was one pitch we were working on musically where it was for a Chinese artist. So we made it in English, and then I got my brother to do the Chinese version. So yeah.
No, I was amazed hearing him sing in Chinese.
I'll play it for you after. He's really good.
Awesome. Well, we've hit 90 minutes. Do we have any parting thoughts? Any life advice?
Any last words?
You want to tell the world?
Well, thanks for listening. And thank you so much for having me and giving me an opportunity to talk about my experiences. I guess any unsolicited advice I would have is, never give up. And also, I think having a career and forging a career for yourself in the creative industries, in the area that's your passion, that you love, it's so rewarding, but it's also really hard. And the advice that I give when people ask is just remember that thing that makes you feel more excited than anything else in the world. Remember that part of it that's sacred to you. That's the thing that makes you feel like everything's worthwhile. That relationship that you have with your passion, and protect it and just keep a few. Make sure you always can access it, no matter what, music video with a tiger you're having to run through, no matter what, licensing pizza man you're trying to chase, whatever disaster is happening and whatever you're going through, that's cool, but there's this part of it that's just magic, and make sure you protect that and stay connected to that, and that's what will, I think, give you the strength to get through everything else. That's how it's been for me.
Beautiful.
Amazing. Love it. Also, a little side note, you did have a tiger on a set.
Wild. I was wondering if it was a personal reference. Well, thank you so much for coming. It's been awesome to hear your story.
Our first international guest. That's still from Australia. But
first blood and international. Nice. So thank you, Shelley, and thank you, Marty and Catalog Music in Fortitude Valley, for letting us shoot here every week. Thanks for listening. Bye-bye.